it's Kelly, and I am back with job number 7. So I guess after all my crazy hair school and hair salon experiences, I finally realized something. Y'all, I suck at doing hair. Like, I really do. Like, if you came to me and said, do my hair for prom or get my hair ready because I'm going on a date or my wedding, I'm at a loss. I'm just not good at doing hair. So it was time for me to figure out something else. I don't know why I didn't think of college, but I just went up to the shopping center in my neighborhood and I got a job at this shoe store, Rack Room Shoes. So I go in, I'm like 19, I get a job there and I'm selling shoes. And I didn't realize this, but shoe stores have a lot of weird things that go on. Like in the back of the store, that's where the women's size 11s are. And that's where men come in that dress up and would get size 11 shoes and then try them on and prance around in them. So men in business suits that just look like they just got off, just came back from DC, they would try on the women's size 11 shoes. Also, I was very young and naive, so sometimes men would come in and say to me, what size shoe do you wear? And then I'd say 5, 5.5, and they're like, oh, can you try on those shoes in a 5.5 and just walk by me a couple times? I did that once and my boss was like, no, she is not doing that again. Take off those shoes and get out of the store and don't come back. And I was like, whoa. And then my boss said, that guy just did not have good thoughts on his mind. And so we had a rule that we could not try on shoes for people because people just weren't thinking the right thing. So that boss, his name was Greg, and he was in his 30s and was having a relationship. He was the manager and was having a relationship with this assistant manager named Shireen that was in her early 20s. And so he would have staff meetings with us all the time and tell us over and over again that we couldn't date any of our coworkers. And we had to sit there and pretend we didn't know they were dating because he just gave her a ride in the morning. They just met up and he just gave her a ride. And then they would get in all these lovers' quarrels in the back very, very loud. And he would scream, I don't want to go to your mother's tonight. And then we would just be at the register ringing people up. And then he would get so mad, he'd walk out and like kick the display shoes and throw some of the display shoes and be screaming at her and cussing at her and being really, really mean to her. And then she would almost be crying. But the rest of us were teenagers and we had to act like none of that was going on. And then there was one manager, Leslie, not the manager, not like the assistant manager, just in the middle. And she wasn't dating either of them, and she was just stuck in the middle of it. And now as an adult, I look at Leslie's job and I think, Leslie, girl, I'm sorry you had to deal with all that drama. Oh my gosh. And those two were constantly fighting, and then he was constantly telling us not to date anyone that works there. And then like, do not date any of your coworkers. And we had to sit there like, oh, okay, we won't date any of our coworkers. So one night, this was a long time ago. There was no caller ID and there was no cell phone. So if your friend wanted to get a hold of you, they would call you there and be like, hey, we're going to meet you there at 5. So one time we had this inventory and Greg went off on us. And he said, you need to be here and you're going to be here all night. Do not plan anything with your friends. Don't have your friends call here. Don't have your friends waiting outside. Don't do anything. You are going to be here all night doing inventory. And he's like, if I get a phone call from anyone, I am going to be so mad at you. I don't want any phone calls that night. And he went off on us like every day about how we could not have any phone calls. And Greg was always so mean to me. And this other Asian guy that worked there, I think he was Vietnamese, he was so mean to me. He was always saying things to me like I needed to wear more product in my hair and he didn't like my clothes. So that night, I got my friends Johnny and Dave and some of my other friends to wait because Greg told us we better not get any phone calls to call. And so when we're in the middle of inventory, they called up there and they were like, and then Greg was like, oh no, I know we're not getting a phone call. I know we're not. And so then he went over and he was like, hello. And they were like, hello, may I please speak with Tran? And he was like, Tran? I told you not to get any phone calls. And he's like, it's not me, I swear. It's not me. I don't know who is calling. And he's like, well, one of your friends is calling here. And then I thought, that's right. I told you not to be mean to me. So then my friends waited a little while. We had this all planned out. So about 15 minutes later, half hour later, they called back and they're like, yeah, is Tran there? And then he was like, Tran, I told you, why are your friends calling here? And then Tran was like, it's not me, I swear, I didn't tell my friends. Then they waited a little while longer. This was all in our plan. And then they called a little while longer. They called several times for Tran. And then they called a little while longer, and he screamed at his girlfriend, "Go get that phone!" And then I said, as soon as someone besides Greg answers, you have to do this. They were like, "Yeah, may I please talk to Greg?" And then he was like, "I swear, whoever that phone call is for, they are going to be in so much trouble." And she answered and was like, "Hello?" And they were like, "Yeah, may I please talk to Greg? This is his close personal friend." And then she was like this, "Greg?" And he's like, "Who is it for?" And then she said, "Greg, it's for you." And then he was like so mad. And then when he went over to the phone, they just said something like a cuss word and then hung up on him. And then everyone was looking at him like, "Thought you said not to get any phone calls." Like, well. Then another time they would always flip out about this manager named Mr. Moody that worked at the Woodbridge store, because Mr. Moody would come from Woodbridge and then he would leave there and head to Manassas. Then Woodbridge would call Manassas. Then he'd leave there and head to our store. And then they'd call us. Then he'd leave there and head to Sterling. And then we would call Sterling. And I don't know where he went after that. But anyway, they would be like, "When he comes, you show him some respect. Don't you ever call him anything but Mr. Moody. Ever." And we'll go on and on and on about how, and he kind of looked like Marion Barry, and they would go on and on about how we needed to show him respect. So then my friends would call up there when I knew he was coming, but I'd already left, and they would be like, "Yeah, is Dave there?" And they would be like, "Dave who?" And they were like, "Dave Moody, this is his close personal friend." And back to that night with the inventory, he said, "Is this you and your friends?" And I said, "Me and my friends? No." And I said, "Why would my friends call and ask for you and Tran?" And that was some of the joys of not having caller ID. My life was kind of ruined after that game. And then another thing they did was we would have these competitions about who could sell the most shoes. And I would go in the baby shoes or the kid shoes, but it sucked because this other guy, Alan, would always go in the Timberlands and the men's shoes. And so then he can just sell one shoe that's going to equal like 5 baby shoes. And so anyway, we would sell shoes, and we would find stolen shoes. People apparently take their old shoes off, put them in boxes. We'd find empty boxes. I don't know how big their purse was to get a pair of shoes in there. And so sometimes we would call up there because Shireen would get very excited if somebody called. She'd write her name on that and then scream at us and tell us we had to give her commission for that shoe. So my friends called up there once and they're like, "Do you have a pair of Timberlands?" Then I made sure we had that pair. And then she would go over there and like check, and they'd be like, "Now it's a size 10, right?" And then they're like, "Yes." And Shireen's like, "Yes." And they're like, $110? And she's like, "Yes." And they're like, "Okay, I'm coming up there. I'll give you the commission." And then they'd be like, "Okay, now, are those Velcro?" And then she would be like, "Wait." And that was way before there was Velcro Timbs. And then she'd be like, "No." And then they would cuss her out because that's what you do. Or they'd go through the whole thing and be like, "Okay, now, are those polka dot?" And then she'd be like, "Or are those pink?" All those things are in the realm of possibilities now, but back then they were not. And then she would be like, "No, they are not polka dot." And then they would cuss her out. Just be like, "Well, shoot, I really wanted polka dot Timberlands. Okay, never mind, the sale's off." So we'd go from thinking, "Ooh, I have this $110 shoe, a commission," to like, well, since they're not polka dot, you have nothing. So that's like some stress relievers for me. Like, you were getting on my nerves at work or whatever. That's how I relieve my stress, by getting my friends to prank call them. Was that a good choice? Yes, because it still gives me and a lot of other people a giggle, because it is really funny. And that is basically who I was at the age of 19. One day, I got my old boyfriend's sister a job there, and she was way more, she was like a year older than me, maybe even younger than me or something, but she was way more adult than me. It took me a long time to be an adult. I don't even know if I'm an adult now. But anyway, she was way more graceful and had a lot more professional clothing, where I still kind of dressed like a teenager. And they said, even though Kelly's worked here longer, she is more professional, and we're going to make her a manager. And I hope Kelly's feelings aren't hurt, but she is more manager material than Kelly. And now I have come to understand that I'm not really manager material, and that's okay with me. But back then, that really hurt my feelings, and I didn't want to prank call or anything like that. And I just felt like shoes and rack room and all this drama here, it is not my future, and they don't appreciate me and all the things I do, besides pranking them, which they didn't know about. But I thought, okay, I didn't know then, but I know now that I needed to grow up a lot. I mean, besides the pranking, I did need to grow up a lot, but I wasn't ready to and I didn't know how to. But that really hurt my feelings, so I quit. And they said, Greg said, you got to put in a 2 weeks notice or you'll never be able to get another job. Greg, you're a liar. Come on now, this is Rack Room Shoes and I'm 19. Of course I got another job. Come on now, Greg. But anyway, I quit there to move on to something else. And now I think back about just maybe some differences, like how I could have done things different. Would I have still pranked them? Yes. But maybe I could have dressed a little more professionally or been a little more adult. But I was 19 and I didn't know how, but I do know how to make these videos. So I'm going to upload this, so please subscribe, like my channel, and we'll see what happens next. Thanks, bye.